2 weeks later, we deployed to Afghanistan, get there, bunch of crazy missions, was there from August to December doing CASEVAC, medevac, alert. We are traditionally a personnel recovery platform, meaning we specialize in contested non-permissive operations, maritime operations, night operations, penetrating deep into enemy territory. Think the movie Behind Enemy Lines.
Yep.
We have the ability, we have the defensive, we have a self-defense system. We have multiple ways to defeat the enemy, specifically missiles that most aircraft don't have. The expense is the people. And you can really tell the difference between a good leader and a great leader when they understand that the commodity, the currency that we deal in is life in blood. And if we don't recognize that, then we will never accomplish the mission. If we just continue, to your point, to push and push and push, and we don't let up any, we will destroy our people. There are times when we have to push really, really hard, but we have to recognize that as leaders, and you can recognize that by understanding and knowing your people. And that's what I talk to y'all about all the time, my cadets, is our job is to lead people. Our job is to take care of our people. We can't take care of our people if we don't know our people. I attribute my success in pilot training, getting a rotary slot, getting an H-60 slot. I attribute that to the Corps cadets. There's no place like Blacksburg, Virginia. There's no place like the Corps cadets. The amount of experience that y'all have on a day-to-day basis is unmatched in 99.9% of all the other units, all the other ROTC units around the nation. And this is where leaders are developed. Leaders are not developed on active duty. Leaders are developed in this program because we need you. It is absolutely critical that you practice leadership here every day so that when you step on active duty, whether you are leading 2 people or you're leading 500 people, that you have the skills and you have the knowledge and you have the experience from this place to know, okay, this is a good decision. This is a bad decision.
This is Christian Seal here with the Regimental Podcast. Today we're joined by our first guest, Major Cade. How you doing today, sir?
Doing good. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for being with us. It means a lot to myself, this team here, and then the cadets that are going to be listening to this. Sir, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for the cadets who might not know you?
Most definitely. I'm Major Adam Cade, call sign Manson. Y'all have probably heard that thrown around a few times. I believe there's a question in there. However, right off the top, because I know there's probably some cadets that want to know that story, pilot rules. Unless we're drinking, I can't tell you the story.
Roger.
So, for our listeners, if you want to get that story, it's a Where's Waldo? You got to try to find me downtown. And I'm not going to tell you where my stomping grounds are. That's part of the mystery. But, yes, call sign, you hear Colonel Lowe call me that often, Colonel Harrison. But, yes, I got that from my first deployment to Afghanistan. Happy to tell you all the story if we're drinking.
Great.
Major Adam Cade, graduated from the Corps Cadets in 2009. I was one of the lucky slow cadets, if you want to call that. No, I'm kidding. I was on the 5-year program studying mechanical engineering, did 4 years in the Corps Cadets in the best company in the regiment, Foxtrot, F-09.
Ooh.
Lived the great life of living off campus, 5th year, 4 of us, 4 Air Force ROTC engineers living in a house together off campus, having a great time. Commissioned in May 2010 and got a pilot slot. Would you like me to do a full rundown?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome, because I love talking about this stuff. I want to make sure that I'm not running our time out and we have no questions. I don't want to spend the whole time on the interview and then, okay, it's over.
No, you're good, sir.
But yeah, so commissioned in May 2010. First thing I did, went to ASBC, ASBC, let's just leave it at ASBC. The acronym escapes me. It's essentially a refresher for the 4 years, the 5 years that we did in ROTC. Did that at Maxwell Air Force Base. The Air Force figured out, hey, fraud, waste, and abuse, we're not going to do that anymore. But it was a great time to really take that knowledge that we had as cadets that we learned in ROTC and really make sure we understood how that tied to the real Air Force. Unfortunately, they don't do that anymore. You go directly to tech school, you go directly to pilot training, and you show up to your first base. So it's a little bit of a catch-up game.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that young officers can't handle, because we've had many young officers come in that haven't gone to ASBC, and they're totally fine.
Yeah.
But I did ASBC, then I showed up to Vance Air Force Base, then I went to IFS. It is now called IFT. It's Initial Flight Screening. Now it is Initial Flight Training. It's about a 4-week course in Pueblo, Colorado, flying the DA-20. Went back to Vance Air Force Base, flew the T-6 for UPT, undergraduate pilot training. Was there for about 8 months. And that is where my desire to become a combat search and rescue helicopter pilot began. One of my instructors there, one of the instructors in the squadron, was a CSAR pilot. And he talked to us about his mission, talked to us about what he did. And I said, hey, I really would like to do that. I want to make sure that what I'm doing in the military is worthwhile. Not saying that what we all do is not worthwhile, but that called to me, that spoke to me, him talking to me about that mission. So from that point on, I did everything I could, studied hard, Saturdays, Sundays, doing whatever I could to make sure I got that one rotary spot. I got picked up, I got that slot. I went to UPTH, undergraduate pilot training helicopter. Went to Fort Rucker to fly the UH-1H. Great aircraft, the old Vietnam Hueys. Single engine Huey, a blast flying around. Still had bullet holes in it, which is pretty cool. And they still have the ashtrays in them from Vietnam.
That's awesome.
Yes, people used to smoke in the aircraft. Pretty crazy, but it's fun flying around. Went through UPTH. That was also about 8 months. I got selected for the 60, and then I went to Kirtland Air Force Base out in New Mexico. That's the schoolhouse for the HH-60, the UH-1N. That is the twin-engine, two-bladed. It's the active duty version of the single-engine Huey. So the more advanced aircraft. Everybody likes to have two engines. That's a smart way to do it. But the 60, the UH-1N, and the CV-22 Osprey, that's the schoolhouse there at Kirtland Air Force Base. That's where all the IQT happens, initial qualification training. Once I got done with that, then I did CST, combat survival training, water survival training, and then what's called the Helo Dunker. Very scary, but it's very critical training. Basically, they have a mock helicopter, a cockpit essentially, and they put it underwater and turn it, and you're blindfolded, and you essentially have to egress the aircraft safely, because that's a very real threat for us, as much water as we fly over. All that being said, I commissioned in May of 2010. Got all that training done, showed up to my first operational duty base, Okinawa, Japan, 33rd Rescue Squadron, in May of 2013. So from the time of commissioning to showing up, it was a 3-year track. The Air Force, side caveat here, the Air Force recognized that, wow, we're taking a long time to put people through the pilot pipeline. Let's see how we can cut that back. Now, cadets do not go to, if you go rotary, you don't go fly the T-6. You go directly to Fort Rucker, now Fort Novosel, and you start essentially UPTH. Instead of having any pre-fixed wing time, you do IFTH and then UPTH, and then whatever aircraft you track, you go to IQT. So essentially shrinking that 3-year timeline down to a 2-year timeline.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you for sharing. I actually didn't know that they sent Air Force down to Novosel. What was that like being one of the only Air Force guys there? Was it weird? Do you have any funny experiences?
Ironically, two-part question, I'll answer both. Ironically, no, it wasn't weird because we had our own space. I drove on to Cairns, the airfield there, drove to the Air Force building, and we did all in-house Air Force training. Yeah, we were flying around with the airspace, flying around with other Army aircraft, the trainers. Fort Novosel, they have... It's, I believe, low Army airfield. There's like 1,000 Blackhawks there. So a lot of aircraft flying around in that area.
Wow.
But it was, to be quite honest, it was like being on an Air Force base because we had our own area on Fort Novosel.
That's awesome.
So
sweet. All right, well, we'll get into our first big question here. So one of the most prominent pieces of advice that's given to cadets from all branches, and I'm sure you heard it here, sir, is mission first, people always. What does this mean to you, and how can we live out this motto as junior officers who are going to enter the military?
Great question. And I will start with, it all depends on where you put the comma, because what you said is mission first, pause, people always.
Yes, sir.
No, in the Air Force, it's mission first, people, comma, always. That's the running joke. However, the Air Force and DoD wide is doing a much better of recognizing the impacts of essentially running people into the ground and the negative impacts that are happening on the family side, on the physical side, the mental side, the psychological side, all the stuff outside of work, family, all encompassing. We're having a hard time with retention because we are so mission focused.
Yeah.
And the Air Force has done a good job of recognizing that mission statement, that motto, really, it's not necessarily a mission statement. The motto of mission first, people always, is the Air Force's attempt to balance those. When we raise our right hand, we know that we're going to have to be doing things at times that we don't want to do. We're going to have to make sacrifices. I understand, my wife understands there's times that I'm going to miss birthdays, I'm going to miss anniversaries. That's just part of the job. And understanding that the mission comes first is absolutely critical. The other piece of that is understanding that we cannot successfully complete the mission if we are running our people into the ground and we're not giving them time off, we're not giving them time to take care of their family, we're not giving them time to do additional education, we're not giving them time to do anything but the mission.
Yeah.
The Air Force is realizing we can't be an elite fighting force if we only focus on the mission. The Air Force, and I keep saying the Air Force, but DoD wide understands we need to focus on the people. If we can't focus on the people, they're ineffective. If we have people that are deploying for 12 months, they come home for 3 months, they deploy another 12 months, they're going to become ineffective.
Yeah.
If we don't take care of the people, the mission will not get accomplished. And the Air Force has done a much better job being very deliberate with making sure that we it's called the CAF4Gen, now called the AF4Gen model, a bucket system, making sure that people are put into buckets. What does that mean? CAF4Gen acronym, Combat Air Force Force Generation. It is a concept now where we control what we call the dwell time of the people that we deploy. In the past, many times people deploy in the rescue community, they would deploy for 6 months, they would come home for 3 months, they would open up their mail, they would water their plants, and then they'd be right back out the door for another 6-month deployment or a 3-month deployment. So the dwell time was becoming an issue, and we had a lot of, unfortunately, people having family issues, divorces, things like that, things that are not healthy for a fighting force. We want to make sure we're nurturing our people. With that model, the intent is when you show up to a squadron, when you show up to a unit, you are assigned a bucket, and it is a 24 cycle 4 bucket system. What does that mean? You have 6 months in each phase. You will show up, you will be in what is called a prepare phase. That is when you're doing all your ancillary training, when you're going TDY, doing large force exercise types of large force exercise operations that will get you prepared to deploy. That is the prepare phase. Then you move into the ready phase. That's when you're cleaning up any of the additional items. Again, these are all 6-month buckets. So in 6 months, TDY a lot, doing large force exercise operations like that, getting ready for the fight, the big, the big air wars they call it, integrating with multiple services, multiple nations, getting all that squared away. Then you go into the ready phase, and that's when you are doing any of your last minute stuff. You're making sure you're very basic stuff. You get your teeth cleaned, you go see the dentist, all that stuff. Make sure your will is in place. Any last minute training you need to do. That's a 6-month phase. And then you go to what is called the ready to commit phase. Means you may not necessarily deploy, but you are on tap to deploy. So for 6 months, you tell the family, hey, tomorrow I may be deploying.
Okay.
But you're in a 6-month bucket. And depending on the type of missions we're doing, depending on what the demand is in the military, maybe we're a contingency task force, maybe we're a international response force. Depending on what we are, you are in a ready to commit phase, also known as the deployment phase.
Yeah.
6 months. Once that is complete, then you come back and you're essentially in a rest phase. They call it the reset phase, but that's the time where you can take what they call block leave. You say, hey, sir, got back from deployment. I want to take 30 days of leave. You are good to go. It is your time to reset, to spend time with your family, take that leave, make sure you are recharging your batteries, because if not, the military will run you in the ground if you're not careful. The Air Force has implemented that. We will see how that works out, because that's a fairly new concept, but that is the intent to meet the idea of mission first, people always. We understand that the mission has to get done, but we have to take care of our people. We have to make sure that they are getting the rest that they need, because if they're not, then they're not a team. It is hard to make them a team player, and then makes it very difficult to complete
Yeah.
a mission. They become ineffective.
Yep. Yeah.
So with that, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's honestly motivating to hear that. I guess two things. One, it sounds kind of weird, but that people outside of college and the Corps struggle with that, because honestly, that's something I've struggled with a lot here in the Corps, is that work-life balance. And then two, it's nice to hear that the DoD and the Air Force is taking it seriously. I'm really grateful for the Corps for providing so many opportunities, because it's provided me so many opportunities to succeed and also fail, and then learn from both of those. And one thing is just a lot of the time I take on too much and I have to scale back, but I'd rather do it now, where generally it's, even the Corps, as serious as some of the stuff we do, is very low consequence, low threat in comparison to what you've done and what hopefully we will do in our future careers. So I'd rather make those mistakes now. But it is nice to hear that people, I'm not crazy for struggling with this. And I think a lot of the cadets who are listening can probably feel the same way, that they, sometimes I feel like we're wearing 3 or 4 different hats of you're a full-time student. You do want to take ROTC incredibly seriously. You want to take the Corps incredibly seriously. And then you have a social life, including family, like you had talked about, religious, going to the dentist. You might have a dog, who lives at home, whatever it is, girlfriend, like taking care of those household items. And a lot of the time, too, I've noticed when one is out of order, a lot of the other fall out of order. So it's really cool to hear that the Air Force has this segmented system. And I'm excited to learn about, for me as an Army cadet, kind of what the Army's got in place once I commission. And then you had something else, sir, on that?
To finish off that question, I think that was like a 17-part question.
Yes,
I think
sir.
the additional piece was the leadership gleaned from that. And I think that's a very important concept. And if we have time, I'd like to dive into that too, because I have an example that can illustrate truly what you as a future leader need to understand about mission first, people always. First operational duty assignment, 33rd Rescue Squadron, Okinawa, Japan. Showed up in May of 2013, got our household goods in June, that next month, June, and they said, hey, Lieutenant Cade, you're going to deploy to Afghanistan in August. Let's get everything ready to go. This is way before the CAF4 gen, the AF4 gen. They've dropped the C out of it. In order to make sure we're all inclusive, it's not just the CAF, not just Combat Air Force fourth generation. Way before the AF4 gen model. So welcome to the 33rd, unpack your stuff. You're going to deploy. Okay, mission first. I'm ready to go. Young, bright-eyed, bushy lieutenant. Just did 3 years in pilot training. Okay, I'm ready to go kick some ass, go do my job, go serve my nation. Okay, awesome. Unfortunately, we had an aircraft accident. We ended up killing, and I say we, the 33rd Rescue Squadron. We crashed a helicopter 2 weeks before we were supposed to deploy. We actually killed a flight engineer and paralyzed another one. Very, very bad situation, August 5th, 2013, in the 33rd Rescue Squadron. Commander understood what happened. The wing commander, many talks. Hey, you need to deploy. Can this unit deploy? Squadron commander says, yes, sir, we can deploy. We need augmentation. The rest of the rescue community around the globe stepped up, and we had augmented crews. We had additional people from different squadrons come in and help us out, because we essentially took out an entire crew. We killed a man, we paralyzed a man, and then the psychological, mental effects from that crash, people seeing that stuff, okay, we're going to take that crew completely out. But we still mission first. We have to go deploy. Our job is to go save lives. If we don't show up, then someone's life is not going to be saved. That's the general mentality. Yes, another unit could have been plugged in, but that was our job. We were on tap. Mission first. Okay. 2 weeks later, we deployed to Afghanistan. Get there, bunch of crazy missions. Was there from August to December doing CASVAC, medevac, alert. We are traditionally a personnel recovery platform, meaning we specialize in contested, non-permissive operations, maritime operations, night operations, penetrating deep into enemy territory. Think the movie Behind Enemy Lines.
Yep.
We have the ability, we have the defensive, we have a self-defense system. We have multiple ways to defeat the enemy, specifically missiles, that most aircraft don't have. Think about a run-of-the-mill UH-60 Army Black Hawk, no armament. We train and are designed to do that. However, in Afghanistan, in Operation Enduring Freedom, the Army was so overtapped with just basic CASEVAC, medevac, i.e. someone gets shot, someone gets their leg blown off, we got to go pick them up and bring them back. It was I don't want to say uncontested, but we did not have a air-to-air threat. It was just a surface-to-air threat, and it was essentially a light machine gun threat. That was our greatest threat with RPGs. We had the ability to supplement the Army, even though our skill set is vastly beyond that. That is a lot of what we did, the rescue community did in OEF, was CASVAC and medevac. So we got away from our traditional mission, but we were still helping out mission first, making sure we were out there saving lives.
Yeah.
We go out there August to December, great deployment, learned some of the greatest lessons of my life on that deployment as a young lieutenant. I was fortunate to have a great flight lead who I attribute a lot of my success and progress in the rescue community to him. Absolutely great instructor. He was a major at the time. I was a lieutenant. And that's what we're supposed to do, to develop people that we lead. We get back from that deployment. So we went through a crash. 2 weeks later, we deployed out there in the shit, making sure we're doing our job, mission first, saving lives. We come back, we get about 2 weeks off, and then immediately the wing turns around and says, okay, well, we are doing what's called a PAC-T, Pacific Thunder exercise in South Korea, in Osan Air Base with the 25th Fighter Squadron, the A-10s. We go there, we go TDY for about 4 weeks. We come back, well, we're going to do another exercise in the Philippines. We go TDY there for about 3 weeks. And we get back from that, and not just my wife, other people like, man, this is going to be a rough life if we're just gone all the time. I'm getting wore down. We had a crash, went to Afghanistan, came back, TDY for multiple months. Training, yes, good. Very, very good. We are continuing to stay proficient. But I have no personal life, and my wife is sitting here saying, I'm in this awesome country, and I don't even get to see you.
Yeah, training at
what
what
is
cost?
going on? Exactly.
Yeah.
And to embody the mission first, people always, my squadron commander, the greatest leader I've ever worked for, I would follow that man through the gates of hell. He truly embodied that. He told the wing, we got back from that second TDY, and the wing says, okay, we're going to do an exercise called a sea burning exercise, where we mop up, we put the mask on, we put all the stuff on, the chemical warfare stuff.
Yeah.
And our squadron commander told the wing commander, said, my squadron's not participating in this. They need some time off. They need to rest. They need to relax. The wing commander said, nope, everyone on base is going to participate in this exercise. Squadron commander probably lost a little bit of promotion steam. He was 05, never made 06, but he took care of his people. He understood that in order for, as a squadron commander, to meet the wing commander's mission of, okay, we got to fly, fight, and win. That's the Air Force's missions. But fly, fight, and win, we got to deploy. I got to give my people some rest. I'm prioritizing my people over this exercise. And that is the true embodiment of mission first, people always. Okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to go hard and we're going to do our job, but I'm going to let you take some time off. I'm going to give you a knee. This training exercise, while it is important, it is not as important as giving you time off so that I can continue to make you an effective pilot, make you an effective member of the team so we can execute the mission. And that was one of those light bulb moments as a young officer where I'm like, that is how you lead people.
Yeah.
My squadron commander has asked me to deploy, to go TDY, flying long hours, working long nights. And now he's going to stand up there and say no to an 06 wing commander saying, no, my people will not participate in this exercise. And we didn't. I think he got a lot of flack for that as a commander, but he took care of his people at the expense of his probably 06 career.
Yeah.
And he ended up retiring as a 05, but one of the greatest leaders to ever walk the face of the earth because he truly embodied that. He did not care about that's truly selfless service. And as a leader, you have to be selfless. You have to put your people before yourself. He knew that he was putting his career on the line to take care of his people. Because if we just kept going, I probably would have ended up divorced. Other people would have ended up divorced. Bad place in life, mentally, psychologically. You have to take care of your people. As leaders, that's our job, to protect our people, to nurture our people, to make sure we're doing all the things we can to block them from the BS, if you will.
Yeah.
There are certain things that need to get done, but if we are going to truly prioritize the mission, we have to understand when it's time to say no to this training exercise, no to that training exercise. It's important that we make sure that our people have a time to take a knee.
Yeah, and I think your point about, you use the word effective, which I think is, it's such an understated thing. I think a lot of the time, like you had talked about in the military and in the Corps, myself, only focus on the outcome, right? And I think of it like a knife. The more you use the knife, at some point you got to stop and you have to sharpen it so that it can be effective in the future, in the long run, right? Like a car, you got to change the oil. You got to stop driving at some point and change the oil. Had you not had that experience and you had to, maybe go on, do that stupid training, keep going, and then your personal life would have suffered. I don't know about you. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I guarantee you your professional life would not be where it is today.
Correct.
In a negative way.
Because they are directly tied to each other.
Connected.
Yes.
Because we got to have those support systems to be more effective, more efficient, more lethal, a better rescue, helicopter pilot, whatever it's going to be. And I think, you've given us some really great lessons, and I just really want to impart on the cadets listening, like, you got to take care of yourself, and you have to take care of your people personally. And it's not about being soft, but it's about, like you had said, choosing when to give and when to push. When to push, when to give. And if you do that, like you've had that experience, your people are going to not only listen to you, but they're going to want to follow you. If they see you are sticking up for them, then when you turn around and you say, all right, now we got to go TDY for 5 more weeks, they trust that you have their best intentions at heart, and they're going to follow you blindly, even if they don't believe in it.
Exactly. When you take care of your people, that is true leadership. People get this distorted idea of, okay, I'm a leader, my job is to accomplish this mission at any expense.
Yeah.
And the expense is the people. And you can really tell the difference between a good leader and a great leader when they understand that the commodity, the currency that we deal in, is life in blood. And if we don't recognize that, then we will never accomplish the mission. If we just continue, to your point, to push and push and push, and we don't let up any, we will destroy our people. There are times when we have to push really, really hard, but we have to recognize that as leaders, and you can recognize that by understanding and knowing your people. And that's what I talk to y'all about all the time, my cadets, is our job is to lead people. Our job is to take care of our people. We can't take care of our people if we don't know our people. And if we don't know our people, we don't know when to stop pushing, and then we've pushed too hard and we've broken that person. The Air Force, in addition to the Mission First, People Always motto, comprehensive airman fitness. In the past, okay, you're healthy if you can do 60 push-ups in a minute and 60 sit-ups in a minute and run a mile and a half in whatever time. That used to be the only way that the Air Force defined healthiness. And the Air Force is doing lots of great things, very progressive. I like that because they are understanding that that is not what fitness and health looks like. Comprehensive airman fitness, that is the mental aspect, the physical aspect, the psychological aspect, the spiritual aspect. You have to make sure all those tenets, all those pieces of the puzzle are being met. Otherwise, again, you will not be able to lead your people to success. You will not be able to motivate them towards success. If someone can do a lot of push-ups, but they have psychological issues, or they're having a rough time with their spouse or their kids, they're not a healthy person. And if you define their health based on, well, they can do a lot of push-ups or run fast, we're cheating ourselves and we're lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
So making sure that we understand the full spectrum of truly taking care of our people is what allows great leaders to meet the mission and prioritize the mission. When they prioritize the people, you prioritize the mission. They're hand in hand. And oftentimes, bad leaders will do one too much. There are times when that a leader can, in essence, not be a good leader when they prioritize the people too much, and now they are not completing the mission. So understanding how to balance those and take care of both of those at the same time is what truly makes great leaders.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, sir. So you talked a little bit about your deployment, about your actual experiences in your career. So you've been in the operations community now for a little over 10 years and post-flight school. And you've served in various roles, including flight lead, instructor, evaluator pilot, now ROTC instructor. Is there anything I left off on that list?
That's about it.
Perfect. what are some of the most rewarding aspects of the career path, of both the path that you've been on, and then if you want to pick out just a specific time where maybe this was really rewarding or I really enjoyed this time? You could talk a little bit about that.
Okay, I can answer that two ways, and I will do my very best to do that concisely. First, what do I get out of doing my job? Right off the top, it is a job about saving lives. In my opinion, it is the most noble job in the Air Force, and that's what drew me to that job in pilot training. When I heard that Sea-Star pilot talk about, hey, I go save lives for a living. That is awesome. That really speaks to me. So the job satisfaction and the fulfillment of knowing that it is my job to make sure someone's worst day is not their last day, that fills my coffers of, what's a better way to put that? Job satisfaction, knowing that someone is not going to die because I do my job.
Yeah.
It is essentially a firefighter, and this is what I was told when I was a young lieutenant. It's essentially a firefighter's mentality. We do all this training, we train so hard, yet we hope we never have to launch, because if we launch, that means someone's life is in jeopardy, and we want to make sure we are the best pilots out there and the best crew to make sure we go and make sure that person's worst day is not their last day. Very, very job fulfilling, a lot of satisfaction out of that, because quite frankly, I couldn't see myself sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours pecking on a computer. I need to be out there saving lives. That is what I enjoy doing, and I love this job. I absolutely love this job, but I'm also very excited to go back to the rescue community and continue hacking the mission and getting out there, getting after it, and saving lives. That's the first piece of it. The second piece, the rewarding piece of it, is leading, and it's what I talk to you all about all the time. Leadership is when you can lead, motivate, and inspire people towards a common goal and succeed. That is just as fulfilling as picking someone up and knowing that they're going to get to go home and see their kids, see their wife, see their spouse.
Yeah.
Being able to lead people to success, being able to garner, being able to harness the strengths of the people that you lead and make them do more than they ever thought they could do and lead them to success. It just, every day, it puts a smile on my face, and I wake up every morning at 4:30 with a fire in my belly to come here and teach all about leadership, because I absolutely love it, but it is so critical for what we do, for our business. We have to be good leaders if we want to lead our people to mission success. If we want to be good helicopter pilots, if we want to be insert XYZ, we have to understand how to lead our people. We have to understand why it is important, and that we figure out how to motivate them, figure out how to inspire them, figure out how to figure out what that strength is, something they're really good at, and push them even further. Additionally, figure out what their weakness is and help them, nurture them, provide them the tools, the guidance to figure out how to turn that weakness into a strength. And I just love doing that stuff. It is just so satisfying. You can ask my wife. I come home every day. I'm like, I did this. This cadet was struggling with this, and now he's crushing it. Or she did this and far exceeded my expectations. I just love this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think really for me, what I love about it is we talk about leadership, and people ask, what's a good way to define leadership? What's a good way to sum that up? How should I lead people? And the way I look at it is, I always want to be, I aim to be the leader that I want to follow. Does that make sense? Have you all heard that before?
100%, sir.
And if you do that, you will be an absolutely great leader. A finer piece of that, and it goes back to the first question that you asked about leadership in the sense of personal growth. I think the question talked about personal growth, leadership. One of the things that it took me a while to really understand, to really grasp the concept when it comes to leadership, is the fact that as a leader, you should not care about what your supervisor thinks. You should care about what the people that you lead think. Now, that may be somewhat of a confusing statement, and I'm going to give you an example of that. For a long time, I was taught, And I had seen other young officers saying, well, you need to do this, you need to check that box, you need to go to this school so that your commander, so that your supervisor thinks highly of you, and you can get a stratification and you can go to this school or do whatever you want, get a preferred assignment. While all that is very important, you cannot lose sight of the fact that you are a leader, and you cannot use the people that you lead as stepping stones. It's quite the opposite. Leadership, and I tell y'all all this time, I tell my 300s, they're probably tired of hearing it, but leadership, being a leader is a burden.
Yeah.
If it's not something that you are ready to do, you need to step away, because this train, it's a one-way road. If you are a bad leader, you need to step away, otherwise this train's going to run right over you. And what do I mean by that? You have to love your people. You have to. It is your job as a leader, whether you are in a formal or informal leadership position, it is your job to protect the people that you lead. It is your job to nurture the people that you lead. It is your job to continue to push, to put them first. And something that I was told as a young lieutenant is, you're a good leader when your supervisor is always on your case about giving your people too much time off, or pushing back, or saying, no, we don't need to fly as long. Because at the end of the day, you have to take care of your people in order to be successful at the mission. And once that finally clicked, I think I consider myself a mediocre leader. I think I became a mediocre plus leader when I finally figured that out, because for such a long time, okay, the squadron commander wants this, okay, let's do that. The squadron commander wants us to go fly 4 hours, 5 days a week at night. We want all this training to get done. Okay, well, we don't have the brain bites. We don't have the capacity to do that based on crew complement, based on people's schedules, people's personal lives. And this really came to fruition when I was assigned to be a detachment commander for a TDY down to Norfolk, where we were working with the 160th. We were doing some deck landings, and we were working with one of the SEAL teams. And I was in charge of all the air crew, all the maintainers. We go down there and we fly it was a 17-day TDY. We flew 16 days of those 17 days.
Jeez.
I mean, I logged probably more hours in that 17-day TDY in those 16 hours, those 16 days, probably logged more hours than I had probably in 3 months. And I came back from that, and this is really where the light bulb clicked. The light bulb turned on. Whatever euphemism we want to use. This is where the wires became uncrossed, I guess, if you will. And I went to the commander, got back and said, hey, sir, I want to give the crew a week off. They worked really, really hard. I want to give them a week off. And the commander said, we can't take a week off. We have to do these training sorties. There's currencies that we have to do. And I pushed again, hey, sir, we need to give them off. I've already told them that they have the week off. We need to give them the week off. So I kind of already kind of wrote a blank check.
Yeah.
But I was coming in saying, hey, sir, bringing my recommendation to the commander.
Yeah.
And through a lot of pushback, he eventually accepted that, but he gave me a lot of flack for it. And that really made me think. I went back to one of my senior NCOs. I'm sure y'all hear this all the time. I talk about this to my cadets as well. You have to latch on to your senior NCOs and really rely on them, because they will provide you an infinite amount of tools, resources. They are mentors, they are guides. They will get you set up and squared away.
Yeah.
Lean on your senior NCOs. I went to my senior NCO who was there with me. Great airman, enlisted member, senior master sergeant. We worked together so well. And we had built that trust, we had built that camaraderie and worked together that I would always go to him with anything and everything that I wouldn't normally talk to other people about. Tell him, hey Rob, the commander's saying, hey, we don't need to take a week off. We can't do that. That's going to hurt the training. It's like, Rob, what do I need to reverse that? Do I need to bring everybody back in? And he said, no, you're doing the right thing. The people that you lead have immense respect for you because you put them before the mission, in the sense, we have to take care of our people. We have to give them a need. We just flew 16 of 17 days.
Yeah.
Our people need to take a break. I get it. The training needs to be accomplished, but it is training. We need to make sure we are taking care of our people. And it is my job, it will be your job in the future as leaders to provide that essentially bullshit screen, if you will. Your job is to, when rocks start falling from the top, it's your job to raise that shield and protect the people that you lead so that they can be effective members, so they can go home for that week, take some time off, spend time with their kids, go get their teeth cleaned.
Yeah.
Whatever they need to do, they need to rest and reset so they can come back and continue to be proficient, effective members of the squadron. And when he told me that, everything finally clicked. It is not, I'm going to get a lot of crap and a lot of flack from my commander for giving my guys time off or letting them focus on their family. But when I do that, I build immense trust and respect and credibility from the people that I lead. And then I turn into that guy, I hope one day. I turn into that guy where I can say, okay, we are marching through the gates of hell. And they say, yes, sir, and they follow me. Because I had a commander like that. Because he did the exact same thing. How do you like that? Brought it full circle.
Yeah.
Because my commander did that. Deploy, TDY. Now we got to do a bullshit exercise. No, you need to go home and spend time with your family. You need to go home and rest and relax. And he built that credibility. He built that trust because I always knew he was going to take care of me. And then when I did that, that is when, again, whatever euphemism we want to use, where the light bulb came on. It is your job as a leader to protect your people, to take care of your people, to lead your people. And you do that by shielding them from upper management in the sense of making sure that you are prioritizing their needs. Now, all that being said, for our listeners, I'm not saying you need to be defiant and say no to your senior leaders, but it is your job as that middle management to make sure that you are not letting your people get run over, essentially.
Yeah. Cool. So you've kind of shared a lot about, so the Army calls it holistic health and fitness. You had talked about the Air Force calls it basically holistic fitness, wholly covering the whole person.
Correct.
How do you personally take care of that for you? What is that like? Can you talk us through some tips, maybe tell a story or so about you and your family personally, not, you as lieutenant or for us Army folks, a platoon leader, but you as Major Cade. How do you go home? How do you take care of that stuff on your end of the wagon?
Good question. And what I think you're driving at specifically, we can encapsulate that in 3 words: work-life balance, right?
Go.
And that is something, to be very honest, that is something that I struggle with. That is something that many people in the military struggle with. Many great officers, many great leaders struggle with that immensely because at the end of the day, it is my job to be a leader. And as a leader, I have to be present. Whether that means being the first one here or the last one to leave, whatever that looks like, being present is a large portion of being a leader. I believe in leadership by walking around. Y'all see me out there at formation.
Oh yeah.
I do events in the evening with the cadets. That I can't lead y'all. I can't set a good example if I'm not here. And that makes it challenging when it comes to work-life balance. But I have an amazing wife who understands all that. And how do I, to answer your question very directly, how do I do that? I'm very, very deliberate with my time. I'm very protective of my personal time in the sense of, okay, if I got to work a long day, when I go home, I'm not going to go home and sit on the couch. I'm not going to play on my phone. I'm not going to, fiddle fart around. How do you like that? I changed that instead of the other F word. I'm not going to fiddle fart around doing stuff that just wastes my time. I'm very deliberate. So if I have a long day, I come home, I change, I grab a bite to eat, and then I spend time talking with my wife or playing with my dogs, or we'll walk around the neighborhood for 2 hours just chatting about life. How was your day at work? Playing with the dogs. We don't have any kids, but we have 2 dogs, and we treat them like kids. So it's all the same thing, but you have to be deliberate with your time, and that looks different for everyone. A perfect example, we had a young airman, newlywed, 6-month-old kid, came into work constantly saying, I don't understand. My wife keeps saying, I don't want to be here. You don't spend time with me. I want to get a divorce. All the bad things that you don't want to hear from a young airman. Like, well, what are you doing at home? What do you do when you go home? It's like, well, I go home and I'll play video games for about 4 hours, then I'll eat, and then I'll go to bed. We're like, dude, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I get it. We have to have hobbies. I'm not a video gamer. I don't play video games, but I like cars and motorcycles, and I like tinkering around with that stuff. But I'm very deliberate with my time to make sure that I have that comprehensive airman fitness mentality when I go home. Be deliberate with your time. Listeners, that is how you manage work-life balance, is you are deliberate with your time, because work-life balance is not okay, I will show up at work every day at 8 and I will leave every day at 5. You cannot do that. The job does not allow for that. In order to manage that very, very fluid schedule, the time that you do have for personal time, you need to be very deliberate with it and dedicate that to, sure, if you're single, for the family piece is what I can specifically speak to, is make sure you are really using your time effectively, because that is how we build that's how we build those stronger relationships with our spouses, is giving that time to them in developing that relationship, as opposed to, well, I'm working a long day, I want to come home and I want to relax and play video games for 4 hours, or I want to go tinker on my car for 4 hours. While we do need those individual singular releases, in the sense of, okay, I just alone time, go turn a wrench on the car, I need some alone time, but I need to give time to my family, otherwise your family will not give you time and they will leave you.
Great. Yeah, sir. Hey, thank you so much. I kind of hit it at the start of the podcast. That's something I've struggled with too, and it sounds like on your end, you're way further in your career. Obviously, I've barely even begun my military career, and you're still balancing that. So I think to the listeners, something I've gotten here just talking to Major Caden a little bit offline before the podcast is it never goes away. That struggle never goes away, and especially as you add things like a wife or dogs or kids or cars or hobbies or what have you, it's never going to go away. I think one thing that I would push to the listeners here as a senior in the Corps is lean into those experiences now as a cadet. Take on more than you think you can, and if you need to scale back, but fail and fail hard. Fail good and learn from that failure. Learn from those late nights where you had to stay up studying till 3 a.m. before a 6 a.m. exam, and then, next exam week, 6 months later, say, all right, I'm going to now create this plan where I don't have to do that. Or with that work-life balance, if you get overloaded, kind of do a little AAR, a little after-action review on what went wrong, actually think through it and be like, maybe I need to develop a plan to call home, or to hang out with my girlfriend more, or to spend more time alone in my room. The Corps it's such a nice place, because you can go from working to then playing 10 minutes later. We've got our dorms right here. I've got my uniforms right next to my gym clothes, right next to my play clothes. So, sometimes it's just a matter of taking off that uniform physically and mentally and getting out of that work mentality and getting into that just being a normal person mentality. So thank you for sharing that, sir. We're running low on time here, sir, but before we leave, is there anything else you want to leave us with? We've hit some really, really important things. I've learned a ton just sitting here with you, and I've enjoyed it too. But is there any last parting shots you want to give to me, the team here, or some of the listeners?
I really appreciate y'all having me here. The last piece of advice that I would like to give y'all, because we haven't talked about it much, is the Corps Cadets and why you're here and what this program and institution does for you. I attribute my success in pilot training, getting a rotary slot, getting an H-60 slot, I attribute that to the Corps Cadets. To speak to what you just mentioned, we do overload you. That is by design. When we overload you, it forces you to, again, be very deliberate with your time, be very effective and efficient with your time, and most importantly, it teaches you task prioritization. There are many officers that struggle on active duty with task prioritization because they were not exposed, they were not in an institution like the Corps Cadets where every day there's something you're expected to do, multiple things a day you're expected to do. All that while being a good student, while having good PT. We expect you to lead every day. We expect you to understand how to not only task prioritize for yourself, but task prioritize for the people that you lead, because that's what you're going to do on active duty. And that's why this is such an awesome institution. And I sat where you sat 15, 16 years ago, and I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you. There are certain things about the Corps Cadets that irritated me while I was here, but by and large, it was an absolutely outstanding experience that I look back and I cherish, because it has made me who I am today, both from a productivity standpoint, but also as an officer. Because to your point, I got 4 years, I got 5 years in the ROTC detachment to practice leadership and fail at leadership and figure out how to become better, so that when I stepped on active duty, when I did 3 years of pilot training, showed up at my first duty base, 3 months later I'm in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Having all these trials and tribulations of the Corps cadets and really forcing that development at such a young age made me into who I am. That's why I'm so proud to call myself a Corps Cadets alumni, and I'm super humbled to be able to be back here and tell y'all of my experiences in the Corps Cadets, in the detachment, on active duty, deploying, and how all this ties together. And this is where leaders are developed. Leaders are not developed on active duty. Leaders are developed in this program because we need you. It is absolutely critical that you practice leadership here every day so that when you step on active duty, whether you are leading 2 people or you're leading 500 people, that you have the skills and you have the knowledge and you have the experience from this place to know, okay, this is a good decision. This is a bad decision. Okay, Airman Snuffy is having issues. Oh, well, I remember when I was a cadet first sergeant or a cadre member and one of my freshmen, they were exhibiting the same issues, and this is how I handled it.
Yeah.
And you had that experience to day one step up and be a great leader and execute the mission effectively and efficiently, which, tying it back full circle here, allows you to put the people first and take care of them. This institution works wonders if you the classic saying, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
You have to be committed. You have to want to take on those challenging leadership roles, because you will. I promise you will, because I did it. There were many times when I took on challenging roles where I'm like, man, I don't think I can do this. But as I worked through it and I failed and I had good instructors and good peers that guided me through that, again, I attribute that to my success and my, I think I'm a mediocre leader, but I attribute all that to my experiences here in the Corps Cadets, because there's no place like Blacksburg, Virginia. There's no place like the Corps Cadets. The amount of experience that y'all have on a day-to-day basis is unmatched in 99.9% of all the other units, all the other ROTC units around the nation.
Yeah.
So cherish it, enjoy it. I get it, listeners. There's some bullshit you got to put up with. But again, you will look back, Corps Cadets, and you will have some of the greatest memories and some of the greatest friends out of this institution. I still have buddies that we talk probably on a weekly basis, if not more than that. We still go out and get drunk together, have a great time, exchanging war stories, Corps Cadet stories, back when they made us swim out to the duck pond, all that stuff that I'm pretty sure is completely outlawed now.
Yeah, definitely.
All the good old days in Brody and Rash. I was in Foxtrot, greatest company in the regiment. We were in Rash where Pearson Hall East is. The skipper was in a shed there. They called it the skipper shed. And because you had to swipe in and there was a log, well, we got the smart college idea. We'll just crawl on top of the shed, and then we would just open the window there at the stairwell and get in. And then the deputy commandants didn't know we were out past curfew. Actually, maybe you want to edit that out. But yes, great times in the Corps Cadets, very formidable times, and it will make. I have so many high hopes, and I have no doubt that all y'all from this institution are going to be absolutely great leaders day one on active duty.
Yeah, it's really good to hear what we're doing here matters, because, I mean, I know you experienced it as a cadet. There's hard days, and I like to think that I've been very bought into this program, but there are days where you're just, shoot, man, I'm done. I'm overloaded. I'm tired. I'm pissed off. Whatever X, Y, and Z we have tomorrow. We've got this event coming up, but to hear it from someone who not only, I get, like, all right, run-of-the-mill major, but someone who has led an incredibly successful career. I mean, I'm not just saying this because you're one of our guests. You are a great leader. I look up to you, and I'm not even in Air Force ROTC. My roommate, Cadet Kincaid, is the Air Force Wing Commander. The way that he and other Air Force cadets talk about you, what you've done and what you continue to give to them, obviously what you're doing is working. And you having your roots here in the Corps, I think I know for me is incredibly motivating, especially as a senior. So thank you for sharing that with us. To the listeners, you heard it. What you do matters. What you're doing here matters. As annoying as formation in the cold is, and as annoying as it is that the Air Force freshmen right now don't have their fleeces, so we can't wear our cold weather gear in like 30-degree weather. You just got to deal with it, because what you're doing, all in all, does matter. What you put into this organization, you're going to get out. And I just looking back as a senior, I wish I could go back and do it all over again, because I've loved every minute, but at the same time I am dying to get aviation slot November 30th when Army finally decides to tell us. So, all right, well, sir, thank you so much for being here with us. To the listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for investing in yourselves and trying to be better. And we'll see you next time.